Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat
Hare
Pranam, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you. So we'll start with the prayers as the others are still gathering. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Naruttamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनच्छलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये पंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते राधानाथ। नमो ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष निवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानंद माधवम श्री चैतन्य ईश्वरम। हरि ओम तत्सत। हरे कृष्ण। Thank you all very much for joining. And apologies, last week I had to very last minute cancel the class because of some unexpected attention that I had to give urgently to some work related matters. So in our journey in the Srimad Bhagavat, we are at a very interesting juncture. So to the credit of all of you, we have managed cover 6 cantos out of 12. Rebo. So that is 50%. It is said even if one recites one verse from the Srimad Bhagavat, it is so powerful. Even one word of the Srimad Bhagavat is so powerful. So somehow Krishna has allowed us with his blessings and the blessings of Guru, the Vaishnavas, 6 cantos. We cannot say in-depth study, but at least we have more or less turned the pages. enough to, hopefully enough, whet up transcendental appetite. So sometimes, when we don't know something very valuable, especially this happens for food items, sometimes we have never seen or tasted that cuisine, but we pass next to a restaurant and there is a unusual aroma which comes. Hopefully it is nothing non-eatable for us, but there's a whiff of an aroma, and it attracts us to taste. So in food, there is smell comes first, taste comes later. So we are hoping that this will whet up, our transcendental appetite to go deeper and deeper in the study of the Bhagavad. So while we intend to begin seventh canto, I was thinking rather than just jumping straight and going into the next chapter and continuing to kind of spend today's session to kind of take a stock at what we have covered, a very high level. Take a stock of the seventh canto, what the seventh canto is about, kind of discuss about it in an introductory manner, without directly getting into the chapter 7.1 itself. And before that, try to get a high level view of what all we have covered in the first 6 cantos. Again, at a 5,000 feet level, without, we are not discussing at a chapter by chapter level, but broadly, what has been covered, how the flow has been, so that we get some sense. The thing is, because there are so many hundreds of topics covered in the Srimad Bhagavat, it helps us to remember the Bhagavat and the various episodes if we have an understanding of how it is structured and how it flows. Then that helps us to, it's like a thread on which everything is strung together, and so it's easy to remember because one can logically understand how the topic of the Srimad Bhagavatam has been evolved. So I'm going to go through very quickly through the first 6 cantos, just 2-3 minutes on each. And then we will talk about what we are about to discuss in the 7th canto. So I don't intend to cover chapter 7.1 today, but it will be a quick synopsis of first 6 cantos and also a quick synopsis of the 7th canto as to what is coming. So the Bhagavatam has been described Nigama Kalpatarur Galitam Phalam Shukamukhad Amruta Dravasai. The ripened fruit of the tree of the Vedas. Essence of the essence. Out of all the things which have been spoken by the Lord in the form of scripture, the essence of the essence is the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is compiled by Vyasadeva, Ashtadas Sahasraha, 18,000 odd shlokas across 12 cantos. And being a Puran, of course, it is a Mahapuran. There are 18 Puranas, 6 in the mode of goodness, 6 in the mode of passion, 6 in the mode of ignorance. Amongst the 6 in the mode of goodness, this particular Puran is a beyond goodness Puran. Amala Puranam. The scriptures say that Puranas, what is the characteristic of a book which is a Purana? It is said a Purana is expected to cover 10 topics. Any Purana. Now, not necessarily all Puranas cover all 10 topics, but Puranas hover around these 10 topics. And different Puranas cover or emphasize different of those topics. Bhagavatam, being the Mahapuran, Amala Puran, covers all 10 topics across the 12 cantos. What are these topics? We have discussed this multiple times, but very quickly. Sarga, Visarga, Sthanam, Poshanam, Uti, Nirodha, Ishanukatha, Manvantara, Nirodha, Mukti, and Ashraya. So you can find this. There's a shlok in the Srimad Bhagavat which gives this. This is towards the end of the first canto. So the Bhagavatam itself also mentions that these are the 10 topics it covers. I'll just repeat again in the right sequence. Sarga and Visarga are the first two. Sarga is the primary creation. Visarga is the secondary creation. Then third is Sthanam. Sthanam is the planetary systems, the place of the living entities. Then the fourth topic is Poshanam. How the Lord nourishes, Poshan, nourishes the living entities. Fifth is uti. Uti means impetus. What is it that drives the living entities to do various kind of things? Uti, UTI, uti. Sixth is manvantaras. What are the different manvantaras and within the manvantaras, the next topic is Ishanukatha, the various pastimes of the Lord and the devotees across the various divisions of time. Ishanukatha. Of course, we are very excited about Ishanukatha. Ishanukatha in simple words means the Lord's pastimes. And when we say the Lord and his devotees' pastimes. Ishanukatha. The next topic is Nirodha, how annihilation of material creation is done. The subsequent ninth topic is Mukti or liberation. And the 10th topic is Ashraya, the supreme shelter. So Bhagavatam is that scripture which covers all 10. Now the interesting thing about the Bhagavatam is that the Bhagavatam distributes itself in various cantos to focus on various of these topics. So the general point is all 12 cantos, across all 12 cantos, all these topics are distributed, but certain topics are predominant in certain cantos. Okay, I'm repeating this. While all 10 topics are found spread across the entire Bhagavad, some cantos are specifically focused, not exclusively focused, majorly focused on certain topics. So we will discuss what is the essential content of the first 6 cantos in the light of these topics. Okay, so you got it right. All Puranas cover these 10 topics. This is the definition. Vyasadeva says Purana means covers these topics. And different Puranas cover different of these topics. Bhagavad covers all the 10 topics and they are distributed, but there are certain cantos which focus. So how does the Bhagavatam flow? At a high level, there's a particular sequence in terms of these topics. So the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavat. Now the interesting thing is, in the early part of the Srimad Bhagavat, the Bhagavat is also in the first canto, second canto. The Bhagavatam is also compared the transcendental form of the Lord. So while we speak of 10 topics, the Bhagavatam is simultaneously compared to the transcendental form of the Lord. The first 2 cantos are considered the Lord's, the first 2 cantos are considered the Lord's lotus feet. Third and fourth canto are considered the Lord's thighs. Fifth canto is considered the Lord's navel. Sixth canto is considered the Lord's chest. And so on and so forth. And finally it comes up to here. We will go through that sequence. So it's a very wonderful description of how. And that is why Srila Prabhupada would often emphasize to his disciples that do not be eager. The 10th canto is the Lord's face. The 10th canto is the Lord's face. Directly one should not look at the face of the Lord. First start from the feet. Go up, like darshan sequence. So 10, 11, 12. 12 is the head. 11 and 10 is the face. And slowly one should go higher and higher and higher. 7th and 8th, 6th is the chest, 7th and 8th are his arms. 7th and 8th canto are his 2 arms. 6 is the chest, 7th and 8th are his arms. The 9th is his throat, 10th is his face. And 11th and 12th I already mentioned to you. 11th is the forehead, 12th is the head. Okay. Whoever wanted to take note, I hope you have made a note of that. Okay. Very quickly again. Feet, first, second, 2 thighs, third, fourth, navel, fifth, chest 6th, 7th, 8th, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so one should gradually come. Also, the topics of the Bhagavatam are also evolved in a particular sequence. Even though technically it is not necessary that the 10 topics of the Puranas have to be evolved in this sequence, it is not a necessary requirement of a Purana, it has to be that. But these 10 topics, very interestingly, are evolved in a very peculiar way in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So while we think of the Bhagavatam, we can think of the Bhagavatam in these two ways. Think of the Bhagavatam as these 10 topics and how these 10 topics map to the Bhagavatam Purusha, the Supreme Lord in the form of Bhagavat, and how it maps to the different transcendental limbs of this Supreme Personality of. So the first two cantos, very interestingly, like feet. What is feet? Feet is the basis on which everything stands. So the first two cantos, and especially so the first canto, focuses on establishing the foundation of the topic that Bhagavatam is going to discuss. What does that mean? Now, I'm not going to be able to cover everything that Bhagavatam first canto, second canto covers. I'm just giving key ideas. So this is not going to be, this is a quick synopsis, not a thorough summary of every canto. So, so the first couple of chapters focus on setting up the philosophical context of what the Bhagavatam is aiming to teach. And you will especially see this in 1.2, 1.3. Divinity and divine service, Krishna, the source of all incarnations. Establishing pure devotional service as the ultimate goal. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhakti radokshje ahaituki apratihata yatma suprasiddha. This Bhagavatam throws away also, this is another verse, throws away kaitava dharma and propounds the highest truth. So it again and again glorifies pure devotional service and says we kick out all other cheating religion. So it establishes the philosophical framework, the key philosophical concepts that Bhagavatam espouses. And at the same time, especially in the first canto, the historical context of the Bhagavatam's appearance and also the introduction and the brief histories of the key characters in that story are brought up in the first canto. Yes? Narad Muni meets Vyas. The whole reason why Bhagavatam came about. Vyas was bewildered and, not happy, not bewildered, but not happy. And, that whole episode. The story of Parikshit. Who is this Parikshit? Who's such an important character? To whom the Bhagavatam was spoken? Who is this Shukadev Goswami? Will speak the Bhagavatam. What is the background? And what was the situation that led to the revelation of the Bhagavatam, the cursing of Parikshit? Right? All these things are, this whole context, the setting is discussed in the first canto. Also, a lot of background stories about the Pandavas, Lord Krishna, leading all the way, Kunti's prayers, Bhishma's disappearance. All these background stories of the Mahabharata leading up to the point of disappearance of Krishna. Because what does Bhagavatam say? What do the sages say? One of the questions of the sages, Suta and other, Shaunaka and other sages to Suta Goswami was, where has Dharma gone for shelter when Krishna has disappeared? Krishna Swadhamopagate. Krishna has gone to his Swadhama and have the principles of religion gone to take shelter. And what is the answer? Here, Krishna Chandra sets in his eternal Leela. Sets means he appears somewhere else. And here, Purano Adhuno Arka Uditaha, the son of the Bhagavatam has arisen simultaneously. Krishna disappeared, Bhagavatam appeared. That's what first canto is about, you know. Of course, the first couple of cantos also discusses the Chatushloki Bhagavatam, which is the summary of the Bhagavatam in 4 verses. Just like Bhagavad Gita, we have 4 verses, which are the summary of the Bhagavad Gita. Anyone remembers what are those 4 verses? The number, which chapter, which verses?
10,
10.8, 8,
Yeah.
9,
10, 11.
Agam Sarvasya Prabhu.
8, 9, 10, 11. Similarly, Bhagavatam has the Chatushloki. So this is the instructions which Lord Hari gives to Lord Brahma. Which is everything that you need to know is condensed in these 4 verses. So all that is covered in the first 2 cantos. So it kind of, the first 2 cantos, which are foundational, form something like a prelude to the whole Bhagavatam. The 3rd and the 4th canto, which are the 2 thighs, they essentially focus on the topics of Sarga and Visarga. Primary creation and secondary creation. And how that conversation is brought about is in a very interesting manner. 3rd and 4th cantos, amongst the biggest cantos, across the 12 cantos, 3rd canto, 4th canto. Most of the other cantos are small, 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 small. 3rd canto, 4 volumes, 4th canto, 4 volumes. Big books. Most devotees get excited. Somehow they complete 1st canto. 2nd canto is more difficult to. 3rd canto is so difficult to cover. Most devotees rarely ever reach 5th canto. Not most, many. Especially those who are reading sequentially. So the whole context of 3rd, 4th canto is, the whole setting is Vidura and Maitreya's conversation. And the historical context of that conversation has already been set up and developed in the earlier cantos. Yeah? Correct? When Dhritarashtra, Vidura poked Dhritarashtra, made him go and do austerities and give up his life, and somehow he repented and achieved liberation. Then Vidura leaves home saying, my job is done. I was only waiting to deliver my brother, Dhritarashtra. All others are anyway pure devotees. What else do I have to do? So he goes, right? And that whole pastime in the Bhagavata is there, how he travels, and finally he meets Maitreya Muni. We're not going to all the details. But a beautiful conversation. Who does he first meet, Vidura, before he meets Maitreya Muni?
Maitreya.
No.
Before Maitreya.
Uddhava.
He first meets Uddhava. And that is when he comes to know about the disappearance of the Lord, right? And then he wants to hear from Uddhav, but Uddhav says, oh, you are so much senior to me. So I cannot, it would not be right for me to instruct you in Krishna Katha, even though Uddhav is obviously extremely capable. So Uddhav directs him to Maitreya. Because Uddhav and Maitreya both were personally present when Lord Krishna went back to the spiritual world. So all those we have discussed. I'm just giving very quick snaps from what we have discussed. So you can stitch that bigger picture together. So the whole setting is Vidura and Maitreya, and there's a very beautiful conversation where a lot of topics are discussed. Vidura is very excited to ask, and Maitreya is very excited to speak. So when there is an excited speaker, an excited audience, whatever the topic is, it's a very enjoyable conversation. What to speak when the topic is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the most relishable conversation. So that forms the basis of the third, fourth canto. And he asks a lot of questions and in the process of answering those questions, how this material world is manifested, how it's created, how the Lord seemingly out of nothing from the unmanifest material energy creates the primary manifestation, how the planetary systems are created, time, embryology, family life, Sankhya, Bhakti Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma, spiritual world, material world. So many topics are discussed in these third and fourth canto. Varahadev's pastimes were discussed. Descriptions of Vaikuntha Loka are there in these cantos. Also very interesting exemplary household life of Kardama Muni and Devahuti. That also forms a significant part of this part of the Bhagavatam. And Devahuti's most illustrious son. Devahuti's most illustrious son. Anybody remembers?
Kapila Dev.
Kardama Muni and Devahuti's son, Kapila Dev, who is an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who teaches the original Sankhya philosophy. And Devahuti is delivered. Kardama Muni goes away. Devahuti approaches Kapila Dev and he instructs her and she becomes delivered. So, a lot of these discussions are in the third canto. Fourth canto is also very rich in its content. There are discussions about great personalities, Lord Shiva. Dhruva's pastime is there, Suniti, the mother of Dhruva and Dhruva, Narada. Then pastimes goes into other personalities like Anga, Prithu, Prachetas, and the exemplary devotional service of various of these characteristics. There are positive stories from whom we can learn positive things like the Prachetas, Dhruva, good things to learn. And there are also negative examples. Bhagavatam has both kind of examples. Negative examples like Daksha, Suruchi, Vena, Indra. Somehow Indra is more often quoted for his mistakes rather than his devotional service. He serves the Lord like that. Because he's at the epitome of success and wealth, somehow the Lord, more often than not, even though he is glorified in the Vedas, the literatures of pure devotional service, he's made an example of how not to be. That is the problem with Mishra Bhakti, Karma Mishra Bhakti. Prachina Barhi was also very, very attached to materialistic fruitive activities. So how various of these personalities made mistakes, how they overcame their mistakes, how they transformed themselves, and how some of them eventually transcended. All these beautiful stories are there. Of course, some of them are stories of pure devotees, especially stories of Dhruva, the Prachetas, Prithu Maharaj. Prithu Maharaj is not only a pure devotee, but he's also an incarnation of the Lord. He's recognized as the first organized king of earth. He's the one who set up a formal ruling and governance system and organized governance. Before that, practically the earth was just forests. There was no organized activity, no organized farming. So cities and other things and organized agriculture came up under the rule of. So across third and fourth cantos, through the various beautiful pastimes and the prayers of these great devotees, whether it is Prithu, whether it is Dhruva, the conclusion is established that what is the highest desirable thing? Of course, highest desirable thing, in one sense, Bhagavatam established in first canto 1.2, Savai Pumsam Parodharmo Yato Bhakti Radokshaje. Unmotivated, uninterrupted devotional service to the Lord. But in terms of practical activity, what does that mean? So the highest desirable activity for those who are aspiring for pure devotional services, established through the lives of these great devotees. Through their prayers, it is revealed. I have mentioned this many times across the Bhagavatam. When these devotees pray to the Lord directly and ask for benediction, I have never found one place where the devotees say that, "Oh Lord, please let me enter the spiritual world. I want to associate with you and I want to play with you and I want to dance with you." Huh? Rare. If you have come across any such prayer, let me know. Most of these pure devotees don't pray like that. They pray for a few things, but the most important positive thing that they pray for is always give me the opportunity to hear and sing your name, fame, qualities, and pastimes in the association of devotees. Can you imagine? What these greatest of souls are asking for, we are doing right now. Of course, we are all small devotees. But at least I am. But this is what they want to be doing always, eternally. Then let me never be bereft of the opportunity to be in the association of devotees and discuss Hari Katha. So when we will become sufficiently purified, we will actually be able to understand and appreciate the ask of this benediction. Sometimes some of us may be wondering, what kind of ask is this? To even able to be appreciate what they are asking for, we have to become a bit purified even to be able to appreciate them. Because we are in such a diseased state that we are not able to appreciate the value. Because in the material world, also in the spiritual world, but all the more in the material world, because the Lord may not be directly perceptible to us while we are in this material body, in the material world. The next best activity is to discuss His glories in the association of His devotees. And you go across the prayers, and not just, even though this is mentioned in the context of third, fourth canto, this is the theme across. There is a Vritrasur's prayers, there is the Pacheta's prayers, Dhruva Maharaj's prayers, across. The Gopis' prayers, Gopis were living like this when Krishna left Vrindavan, so to say left, we didn't leave. He was unmanifest from Vrindavan. How the Gopis survived? By being together with each other and discussing about Krishna's pastimes. When the Yajna Patnis, the wives of the Brahmanas, they told Krishna, "We don't want to leave you." Krishna said, "No, you have to go back to your husbands. Don't worry, they will accept you. I will make sure they accept you." So how will we survive? We survive by being together and discussing about me and my glories. So this is a very, very central and important understanding and truth which is repeatedly revealed across the Srimad Bhagavatam, and especially starts standing out more strongly across the third and fourth cantos. So many more points to discuss, but let's move on. So the two thighs, third and fourth. 2 feet are the base, the thighs are giving the strength. And then comes the navel. Sthanam. The place where the living entities are residing is the belly. So that's where the living entities are materially nourished. They are given bodies, they are given a place to perform activities, they are given a place where they can exhibit their propensities and their impetus. So that is known as Sthanam. That is in the fifth canto. which corresponds to the navel of the Supreme Lord. Interestingly, the fifth canto is not only about sthanam. So third and fourth canto are mainly about sarga and visarga. The topic of visarga continues across fifth canto and sixth canto also. So many descendants are discussed, isn't it? Huh? What is visarga? Visarga is how the world was populated. So Kardama, his descendants, the daughters of Daksha, their descendants, Tanapad, his descendants, Priyavrat, his descendants, all these topics are spread across fourth canto, fifth canto, sixth canto. So the first half of the fifth canto is about Visarga, especially the descendants of Maharaj Priyavrat. And Priyavrat is who? Priyavrat is a descendant of Swayambhuva Manu, the first Manu, and he is the son of Brahma. Right? Priyavrat has a very interesting story, right? We discussed that, right? About how he had no interest. He was to be king, but then Uttanapad was made king, and then he thought that, I will just renounce everything. And then eventually, when Uttanapad renounced everything, they came to Priyavrat. Priyavrat, you have to become king. No, I'm not interested. So Swayambhuva Manu, his father came, no, it's your duty, you must do it. All these material duties I don't want to do. I want to do the highest transcendental duty. Then they got Brahma to come with Narad Muni, and they all approached together. And they eventually convinced him, because eventually understood that ultimately devotional service is about pleasing the Lord. And if Swayambhuva Manu, one of the Mahajanas, Brahma, one of the Mahajanas, Narad Muni, one of the greatest devotees, all three are coming and telling him, get married, then I follow what they are saying. So anyway, eventually he gets married, and there are his descendants. So Priyavrat Maharaj's story is also very wonderful and very insightful. So Priyavrat Maharaj dynasty consists of various interesting personalities, and they are discussed. Maharaj Agnidhra, Maharaj Nabhi, Lord Rishabdev, the great incarnation of the Lord. So we discussed quite a bit in the fifth canto about Maharaj Rishabdev and his most illustrious son. Who's the most illustrious son of Maharaj Rishabdev?
Jada Bharat.
No, Bharat.
Tell.
Bharat Maharaj.
Bharat.
Bharat.
Bharat Maharaj was born later, 2 lifetimes later, as Jad Bharat. But the son of Rishabdev is Bharat Maharaj, not Jad Bharat, body-wise. Correct? I mean, you are half right. You're half wrong also. Yeah, correct? So the eldest son was Bharat, became the king, and then we know that pastime. So many chapters are dedicated to the life of this illustrious Bharat, who renounced everything because of a little inattention, got attached to a deer and spoiled it. But whoever has taken, Krishna says, no, nahi kalyana krit kaschit durgatim tata gacchit. He who has taken the path of auspiciousness, the path of devotional service, even if never achieved durgati, Krishna will arrange for him in wonderful ways to come back on track. So that whole story is very nicely discussed in terms of how he became from Bharat, King Bharat, to Sage Bharat. Then he dies, remembering a deer, becomes a deer. After that life, he becomes Jad Bharat. Then he goes back to God. Instructs the great king, Maharaj Raghukana. All that is also discussed. The 3 lives of Bharat Maharaj. And across these stories, also the glories of bhakti is established. The second half of the fifth canto is the sthanam part, and we spent considerable time discussing that also. So Sarga Visarga, primary creation, secondary creation. Secondary creation is the creation of living entities. But where do these created living entities go? What is the place for them to stay? So logically, that is the next topic. Primary creation, secondary creation of species, and the secondary creations, different planetary systems are created for all these various species who are distributed across the universe. 14 planetary systems. So we discussed in great detail the Vedic cosmology. Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha, Janar, Mahar, Tapar, Satya, and the lower planets, Atal, Vital, Sutal, Talatal, Vasatal, Mahatal, Patal. So upper planets, lower planets, and Bhumandal, the 7 concentric circles, if you remember, the various kinds of oceans. We don't have time to revision on that topic. The bottom line is that there's a Meru at the center, which is an inverted cone-like golden mountain. And then there is which Dvipa in the center?
Jambudvip.
Correct. Then there is Jambudvip. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, then there is Bharat Varsha. There is the Dweep is divided into Varshas. Varsha is divided into Khanda. There's this earth which is perched on the southern tip of Jambudvip, bordering the saltwater ocean. Okay. So all that was discussed in the fifth canto. Sthanam. So Sarga, Visarga, Sthanam. So the topic of Visarga spills over from fourth canto into fifth canto and also goes into sixth canto, because even when we discuss the sixth canto, there was also discussion on Visarga. Not in the early part of the sixth canto, but in the later part of the sixth canto. In what form? In the later part of the sixth canto, the topic of Visarga was discussed in terms of the living entities generated through the 60 daughters of Daksha. So that was a very interesting, who married whom and then what happened and all their genealogy and all these things. So all our ancestry can be traced to one of these genealogies. So pretty much. Not just of us as human species, but any species can be traced to this. So this is the original genealogical table across all species of how the Visarga, how these living entities were created and populated. The sixth canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam not only focuses on this continuation of Visarga in terms of the daughters of Daksha and their 60 daughters of Daksha and their progeny, but predominantly the main topic of the sixth canto is Poshanam. Poshana means nourishment. So the Lord, primary creation, then secondary creation of the various planetary systems in the Sthanam. He puts the various living entities through the Visarga process and then he maintains them. Poshan. There is 2 kinds of Poshanam of the Lord. One is the general Poshanam. He provides. Prabhupada so many times says, right? Even the bird gets food to eat. Why are humans in so much anxiety? Once Radhanath Maharaj told me, I was in anxiety. There was some situation and I was, what will happen to me? How will I manage this, that? So Radhanath Maharaj, he looked at me and said, why are you worried? Krishna is taking care even of the birds. Even the birds are not sleeping hungry. Will Krishna not take care of his devotees? So the general arrangement of the Lord is that everyone gets their basic facilities. The humans, those who don't get, are because they are especially destined to be punished like that because of their own sinful activities. But the general arrangement of the Lord is He creates, and within the sthana, the poshanam is arranged. But there is a higher poshanam. Poshanam of the physical poshanam is one level, but the higher poshanam is how the Lord nourishes his devotees. So that topic is discussed in the sixth canto. And as a part of that discussion, the sixth canto begins with the holy name and the glories of the holy name, because that is such an important means of nourishment. Correct? Huh? Even for us in Krishna consciousness, what is our main process of nourishment? Shravanam Kirtanam, the japa and hearing Krishna Katha. The holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So the wonderful pastime of Ajamila, Poshanam. Poshanam also is about how the Lord is so kind to his devotees that even somehow the devotee strays from the path of devotional service. The Lord pulls him back and establishes him again back in devotional service. The Poshanam is nourishment and protection. It also sometimes Poshanam is also translated as the protection of the Lord. So devotees of the Lord have a very, very special protection. Very special protection. And I can tell you that all of you who are in this class are covered by that protection policy of the Supreme Lord. That special protection is that which is not available to ordinary living entities, those who are not devotees. Krishna takes special charge of the devotees to ensure that even if by accident, by stroke of circumstances, a devotee commits a mistake, even a very, very big sinful activity, accidentally he commits, the Lord will very quickly purify him and re-establish him in his proper position of devotional service. Abhichet suduracharo bhajate mam ananyabhak sadhureva samantavyah samyak vyavasito hi saha. Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says the same thing. Kshipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantim nigacchati artha pratijanihi nami bhakta pranashyati. Very soon he'll be purified and become re-established in pure devotional service. So the Lord gives that protection, and we have seen in the lives of so many devotees. Of course, it doesn't mean that devotees who stray are not punished. One cannot say, oh, I am devotee, I can do anything, I will be protected by the Lord. Protection by the Lord doesn't mean that you will be excused. In fact, sometimes devotees are punished much more than what a karmi will be punished. But the point is, the ultimate protection of the Lord is that the Lord ensures that the devotee is brought back to the path of advancement in transcendental life. In that way, he is protected. So that special protection. So Ajamil's life, he had a little bit devotional service before he fell prey to a prostitute. But eventually, through the Lord's inspiration, he named his son Narayan. And through that circumstance, the Lord caused him to utter the name of Narayan. And taking excuse of the utterance of that name, the Vishnu Dutas came and saved him. Gave him a second chance. He didn't go back to Godhead immediately, right? I hope you all remember. He was given a second chance. And he gave up all his sinful activities, went to Haridwar, performed austerities, performed devotional service, and eventually, after full purification, went back to Godhead. Ajamil story is there in the beginning part of the sixth canto. What else is the very interesting story in the sixth canto? We have been discussing for a long time the story of Chitraketu, who is Chitraketu Maharaj. So that's also a very interesting story because in that story, two characters are contrasted. Indra, a mixed devotee, and Vritrasur, a pure devotee. And even though externally it seemed Indra was the hero, actually Vritrasura is the real hero of the story. This is also a good lesson that sometimes we are so absorbed in external assessments of who is a great devotee based on what their external achievements and recognition and position are, that we forget that the real measure of advancement is something internal. How selfless we are, how detached from matter we are, and how attached to Krishna we are, how deeply we have taken shelter of Krishna. In that regard, Vitrasur was far, 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 far higher than Indra's Poshanam was done by the Lord by giving him back his kingdom. But a higher Poshanam was done for Vritrasur. That he was given the opportunity to come back home, back to Godhead. Even though externally it appeared as if he lost, in Krishna's eyes he won. And he went back home, back to Godhead. So even amongst devotees, Krishna protects in different ways. And ultimately it depends on how advanced we are. Because it's not that one size fits all. Sometimes some people, some devotees think if I'm always glorified, that means I have so much mercy. Everybody glorifies me. Prabhu, you're so wonderful. For a neophyte devotee, that may be his measure of how much mercy he is receiving. But for a more advanced devotee, he sees correction and guidance as mercy. He sees chastisement as mercy. Because ultimately, what is mercy? Ultimately, that is mercy which helps us to make more and more advancement on the path of devotional service. The sixth canto eventually concludes through the interesting episode between Diti and Indra. And how that whole episode led to the birth of the Maruts. This is the discussion of the Pumsavan ceremony which Kashyap gave to Diti. Diti was so frustrated, I want to kill this Indra, get rid of this Indra. Why? Because he caused the death of my two first children, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. She performed the Pumsavan ceremony and then Indra said, I must fix the problem before the problem appears. And how he served Diti and found an opportunity at one point where he cut the embryo into 49 pieces. They all became Maruts. Then Indra and the Maruts settled their problem. Maruts became demigods. Indra became friends with them. Diti is also happy. She gave up an enmity towards Indra. She was happy that her children became devatas. So through the process of devotional service, this whole enmity was dissolved and ultimately everything auspicious happened. Akamo sarvakamo va mokshakamo udaradhi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham. Whether one has material desire, no material desire, desire for liberation, in all situations and all circumstances, one should engage in intense devotional service to the Lord. So sometimes we think, right, oh, I am not yet purified, Prabhu. I still have so many material desires. Still you engage in devotional service. Prabhu, I am fully pure. I have no material desire. Still you engage in devotional service. Prabhu, I have pure love for Krishna. Then you will automatically continue to engage in devotional service. Nobody has to tell you. So that is always the source of all auspiciousness, engaging in devotional service. So this is how the first six cantos go. First two form the basis, the historical basis, the characters, the philosophical basis. Third, fourth canto predominantly are on the Sarga Visarga. Fifth canto is predominantly on the Sthanam. And after Sthanam comes Poshanam, which is in the primary topic of the sixth canto. Again, this does not mean that other topics are not at all covered in the sixth canto, but these are the predominant topics. Because you will see topics around Sarga, Visarga are mentioned in some form or the other across the cantos. Because most of the Puranas deal with Sarga, Visarga to various extents, to a significant degree. So with 5 minutes remaining, we come to Seventh Canto. So I'll give you a 5-minute introduction to the Seventh Canto. 5 minutes, max 10 minutes. And it's okay because anyway, we are entering into the Seventh Canto. So the Seventh Canto begins with the next topic in sequence. Sarga, Visarga, Sthana, Ushanam, Uti. Uti, U-T-I, Uti. What is the meaning of Uti? It means impetus. All of us have an impetus. Impetus in very simple words, no need to look up the dictionary. Impetus means what is it that driving us to do something? In the broadest classification, there is divine impetus and there is demoniac impetus, materialistic impetus, spiritual impetus. Correct? Selfish desires, devotional desires. Right? Impetus. So the 7th and 8th canto, which represent the arms of the Lord, because arms is through which you do activities, and when we have impetus, we exercise the impetus by acting in various ways. And primary organs of action are usually the hands. So inclination can be of two types, auspicious and inauspicious. And auspicious inclinations lead the jiva towards happiness, upwards. Inauspicious inclinations lead towards distress and downwards. This topic is discussed in the Bhagavad Gita also, divine and demoniac natures. Correct? Which chapter is it? Bhagavad Gita? Anyone? Divine and demoniac natures.
Maybe 13 or 14, Prabhu. 10.
Nobody remembers.
17th chapter.
Huh?
17th.
14th is modes of material nature. 15th is Purushottama Yoga. 16th chapter is divine and demoniac natures. Devasura Sampada Yoga. 16th chapter. Okay. Anyway, so all this impetus. So we have to understand what are these impetus. And impetus is not just about demoniac and divine. Even amongst the devotees, there are two kinds of impetus. Pure devotional impetus and mixed devotional impetus. Correct? That's why Bhagavatam is discussing Vritrasura and Indra. Pure devotee, mixed devotee. Is it not? It's also two different variants of impetus. So each of us are driven in various ways. And that is also very important to understand. The discussion of impetus in the 6th canto is primarily brought about through contrasting the natures of Hiranyakashipu and his son Prahlad. The archetype devotee and the archetype demon. Father-son duo. You cannot have father-son as poles apart as Hiranyakashipu and Prahlad. Hiranyakashipu was as demoniac as one can be and simultaneously the most materially successful living entity ever. Materially. Of course, he couldn't touch the position of Brahma, but below Brahma, nobody other, no other living entity came close to him in terms of his power, his attainment, his mystic control. Even all the devatas were subservient to him. That kind of attainment. But because his uti was negative, he was actually still full of distress and miserable. So much so that even his own son made him helplessly frustrated because he ultimately could not even control his own son, even though he thought he could control the whole universe. So anyway, this is a very, very interesting story. So the seventh canto focuses on this contrast, the demoniac side of Hiranyakashipu, how his background, his story, how he accumulated power, went to Brahma, performed hard austerities. So it is not just that devotees can perform austerities. Oftentimes, the austerities that the demons do are even one notch above the devotees. Because oftentimes the drive, the uti of selfishness is so intense that oftentimes it is a notch higher than the uti of selflessness, even amongst the devotees. Most devotees cannot even match the kind of intensity and dedication that the asuras have towards their selfishness. That much they do not have towards the Lord. That's why I don't know whether it is in Prahlad Maharaj's prayers or another devotee. I think it is in Prahlad Maharaj's prayers. You can correct me if anybody remembers. One of the prayers he says is, "Let me be as attached to you, O Lord, as the materialistic living entities are attached to their sense enjoyment." Something to that effect. So there is Shuddha Bhakti, Prahlad, there is mixed devotion, there is, of course, demoniac behavior. The demoniac behavior of Hiranyakashipu is uti, demoniac. How did it arise? Arose from the angry curse of the Kumaras on Jay and Vijay. Background story. And the pure devotional uti of Prahlad came from the devotional blessings of Narad Muni, spoke Krishna Katha to Kayadhu, Hiranyakashipu's wife. When Hiranyakashipu went to perform austerities, Indra came to kill Kayadhu and the son is in her womb. Narada stops. He is not your enemy. He is not a demon. The one inside is a devotee of Lord Hari. You have nothing to fear. You go back. And he took her to his ashram. There he would speak Bhagavatam. The mother didn't hear so much intensely, but the son heard everything very intense. Great focus. He became Prahlad. So all these stories are described in the seventh canto. How Prahlad, since his very birth, showed that kind of a transcendental nature, always detached from material things. And how as he grew up, when he was in the school of Shanda and Amarka, how he became the cause of enlightenment to his friends and frustration to his teachers, Shanda and Amarka, were focused on instilling demoniac virtues in the children. But Prahlad would counter that education by giving divine wisdom to the children. So during off period, Prahlad would be giving Bhagavatam class to his friends. And they would be doing kirtan. And Shanda and Amarka became so frustrated. To cut a long story short, they complained to Hiranyakashipu, and Hiranyakashipu himself also realized through a couple of interactions with Prahlad that he's on the side of the enemy, Vishnu. Hiranyakashipu's intense hatred of Vishnu was born out of Lord Varahadev's killing of Hiranyaksha, the brother of Hiranyakashipu. Anyway, eventually the conflict reached its pinnacle when Hiranyakashipu tried every possible means to kill Prahlad and failed. And eventually, through the pillar, the Lord appears in the divine form of Narasimha and performs the open heart surgery at the entrance to the palace. Tears apart. Hiranyakashipu shreds him to pieces. So a very glorious pastime. So much of the seventh canto is the discussion of this pastime. The last few chapters, I think the five chapters, if I'm not wrong, last 5 chapters of seventh canto. Seventh canto is 15 chapters, if I'm not wrong. The last 5 chapters are focused on a specific topic, and that specific topic is the topic where in the context of mixed devotion, there is a discussion on varnashram duties. So there are two kinds of duties, right? Sanatan Dharma and Varnashram Dharma. So Uti is pure devotion. So Prahlad is on the platform of Sanatan Dharma, pure devotion. Actually, Prahlad was so transcendental, he was not bothered. He could have gone immediately back to Godhead, but Lord Narasimha said, no, I want you to stay back. You rule the kingdom until the end of the Manvantar. Interesting instruction. Sometimes the Lord gives very interesting instructions. You become king. So one is the Sanatan Dharma and the other is Varnashram Dharma. So Varnashram Dharma is meant for those who are not yet liberated. So not yet liberated means the Uti is still not fully purified. The impetus is still mixed. Various degrees of mixture. There may be Jnana mixture, Karma mixture. So various duties of Varnashram are discussed in the last 5 chapters of how a living entity should regulate his life and gradually dedicate all his activities to the Supreme Lord so that he can progress towards the ultimate goal of life, which is the full awakening of his Sanatan Dharma. So all these things are discussed in the last 5 chapters. Haribo. So I think I should stop here. So much of the discussion going forward is going to be to the beautiful life and pastimes of Prahlad and Narasimha. So much to learn from Prahlad's character. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was extremely fond of Prahlad's pastime. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would love. You may think Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, oh, he always discussed gopis. Not true. Even though in private, in the later part of his life, he would be absorbed in those moods, but especially in his interaction with the devotees, he would love to discuss and hear again and again about the character of Prahlad, about the character of Dhruva. These two were his favorite, Prahlad and Dhruva. And he would tell again, more, tell me once more. I think it was Prahlad or Dhruva, one of the pastimes he told, I think it was Gadadhar Pandit, told him 100 times, go on again. So can you imagine this kind of character that God admires? So amazing. To amaze God is something. Will we ever be able to do something that God will be amazed? Oh, he did like that? When he looks at us, he thinks, oh, he did like that. When he says Prahlad and Dhruva, that no one else has done like that. What kind of devotion, what kind of surrender, what kind of faith. So Dhruva, Prahlad, they are the pinnacle. And Dhruva in terms of his focus and single-mindedness towards his objective. Prahlad in terms of his full surrender and taking shelter of the Supreme Personality of God. Very, very beautiful. So I'm going to stop here. So from the next session, we will actually get into the 7th canto and sequentially discuss the beautiful pastimes of Prahlad and Narasimha, beginning with the history of Hiranyakashipu and then his interactions with Prahlad, leading eventually the appearance of Narasimhadev and the beautiful prayers that Prahlad offers. And this is a very, very wonderful sequence of 10 chapters. Thank you very much. Yeah. Yes, Suresh Prabhu, you have a question?
Prabhuji, quick question, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, Bhagavatam 11th and 12th canto were written, translated by Prabhupada's disciples.
Sorry, which ones?
11th and
10th
12th canto.
Yes, correct. From the 10th canto, Prabhupada did midway up to the 10th canto. He didn't complete the 10th canto. He was somewhere midway writing commentaries on the Brahma Vimohan Leela, if I'm not wrong. When Prabhupada disappeared in Vrindavan. After that, the remaining part of the 10th canto and 11th, 12th were translated and commented on by Prabhupada's disciples.
Yeah, another general question, Prabhu. This
Yeah.
Pitraloka is there, right? Is it for only ancestors or someone who is younger to us?
Younger.
I mean, somebody like passed away who is younger to us, right? They are not our ancestors, right?
Yeah. Pitrulok is the domain of uh, Aryama and Yamaraj.
Okay.
So Aryama is the prime Pitri. So Pitrilok is, you can say something like it is, we say ancestors also in the heavenly realms, the first level of heavens, Pitri.
Okay.
So yeah, it is nothing to do with age. It is those who go upwards, Pitrulok, and then higher into Swarga via Pitruloka.
Oh, yeah, got it.
Like that. So all the ancestors. So Aryama represents the ancestors.
Yeah. Thank
The
you, Prabhu.
Pitris. Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So I mean, since you brought this topic up, I just want to mention that that we should. Currently, Pitru Paksha is going on, and it will end with the Mahalaya Amavasya on 2nd October. So it's a yearly opportunity to offer Shraddha, Tarpan to the ancestors. And this is part of the householder's duties. But nonetheless, first thing is, even if we are pure devotees, we don't think of ourselves as pure devotees. And second thing is, the reality is most of us are not pure devotees yet. So the example set by all pure devotees who are in the ashram is that they follow the duties of the ashram and the varna. So we should observe these duties by offering Vishnu Prasad to the ancestors. There are various karma kanda rituals also which are done. Those can also be observed, and in that way, if one's ancestors are in any way suffering or troubled because of their own past deeds, then they get liberated and they get reprieve through the offerings that their descendants do. And then they bless them. Of course, this is still a material thing, but while we are in the conditioned space, these things do affect us. So, as a part of the performance of duties for the pleasure of Vishnu, ultimately. So, even Varnashram duties, the devotees' consciousness is, because these duties have been given to me by Vishnu through the Vedas, it is my service to Vishnu to follow them. So, that is the consciousness in which a devotee should perform. That's what the Mahabharata says, that one should perform one's Varnashram duties as an offering of worship to Vishnu. Vishnu is worshipped the performance of the Varnashram duties. Okay, sorry. Thank you. Yeah. Tarun Prabhu, you have something?
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Pranam.
Yeah, Prabhu, one question I have about again Pitru Paksha only. So when soul is independent and it has no relation, then why does the Pitra and their association present? Because ultimately soul has no relative, it is independent entity.
In
and
the
just
fully
going to the Lord.
liberated state, yes, the soul has none. But as long as one has the body, there is association and there is obligation. right? So your body has come from your parents. They didn't create your soul, but your body. So your body has an obligation towards their body. So that's why I said it is still a karma kanda duty. It is not a spiritual duty. So the whole point is that in the material world, we are obligated to various parties from whom we take benefit. And there are 5 main rinas that we all have. The rinas to the pitris, the parents and the ancestors, because the body has come from them. Now, this is a very big topic, but there is a subtle connection between us and the pitris, because the gross and the subtle bodies have a connection when you are in the same line. That's a subtle science. The bodies are indeed affected. In fact, what to speak of your gross body? There are people who can just take one hair from your body, and they can do various things to that one hair in such a way that it will affect your whole body. So there is a lot of subtle connections between how our bodies are related in a not just in a gross way, but also in a subtle way. So we have indebtedness to ancestors, we have indebtedness to the sages, to the animals in general, to the devatas. So there are various to the community. So these are various rinas. So as long as we are in the material realm and we are taking benefit of the work that others have done for us, whether it's ancestors or it's community or it's sages or whoever, we are obliged. Nothing is free. So we have to pay back. So each of the rinas has a scheme of payback. I don't want to go into that in detail right now. That's a big topic by itself. But there's a way in which rinas, Prabhupada has explained that in the Bhagavad Gita also, purports. In which we, and Shraddha and Tarpan is one of the primary ways in which we, and by having a progeny, is how we pay back the Pitri Rina. Because it is the duty of the descendants to deliver the ancestors. Because we accepted a body in a particular line and we are indebted to that line, it is our duty towards that line at a material level. So what if we don't do it? Does it mean we'll not go back to Godhead? No, it doesn't mean that we'll not go back to Godhead, but because of failure of performance of duties, we will still incur some sin for which we may have to suffer. When the Pitris become upset, it creates problems in the family also. It can create disturbances in one's family situation also. Of course, for a person who is fully transcendental and a pure devotee, he is obviously beyond all these things. He may not, even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Advaitacharya, and others were directly the Supreme Lords. They also performed all these rituals. So when we are in a particular varna and ashram, even though one is very advanced, one doesn't say, oh, this doesn't apply to me. And still, Krishna says this in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, right? Even those who have gone beyond, still they follow the duties just to set an example for others. So generally, even liberated souls will generally follow one's duties. Yeah. Now, how exactly that Pitri thing works, whether our ancestors right now in Pitri Lok or not, we don't have to worry and understand the whole system. And we may not know whether they are there, maybe they are already reborn somewhere else. All possibilities exist. But the point is The system is set up in such a way that when we do these offerings, it reaches them wherever they are. How it reaches them, it is not necessary for us to understand that full system. Correct? Just like when I have a phone and I dial the number, all I have to do is put in the number and hit call. I don't have to fully understand how it from here, how the signal goes here, then how it finally reaches your phone. Whether I understand or I don't understand, the call will still go when I dial the right number. So some of these things we don't have to understand because we may not be able to even fathom some of the subtle technologies which are in place. But the understanding is wherever the ancestors are, when we do it, remembering them, and when we offer Pinda, Tarpan with the right faith, Shraddha has to be done with Shraddha, the right faith, then the benefit of that reaches them. And if they are in any form of difficulty, they'll be relieved. If they're not in difficulty, sometimes they wonder, oh, I don't think anybody is in difficulty. Why should I do? It strengthens and nourishes the Pitris, the Shraddha. So if they're happy, they'll become more happy. You don't have to worry. Whether they're happy or sad, I don't know, Prabhu. Don't worry. If they are sad, they'll be relieved of their misery. If they're happy, they'll be more happy. No problem. So we do as part of our duties as far as possible. Of course, we do it in a devotional consciousness. Of course, we do it in such a way that we aim to offer Vishnu Prasad to them because that is the expectation. And on top of that, the greatest benefit we can do for the ancestors is by becoming a devotee. Because the whole conclusion of this pastime of Prahlad and Narasimha and Hiranyakashipu is that simply by being a pure devotee, 21 generations of Prahlad became delivered. That's what Narasimha Dev told him. Right? So Shraddha can only do so much benefit. I mean, it is a expected duty, but Shraddha is not the be all end all. The ultimate benefit we can do to our ancestors and our descendants is to become a pure devotee. So not to lose sight of that point. So while we are performing the Sanatan Dharma, we should not neglect our Varnashram Dharma. That is the point. Okay, you got it? Thank you very much. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, I just wanted to mention to you, October, okay, I think I'll announce it later only. Let's see. Okay. But I think I'll just mention, even though I may not specify a date, very soon we will resume our Saturday, Tuesday sequence. Tuesday for CC and Saturday for Bhagavad. Yeah, I'll let you know as and when, but likely in October sometime. Thank you. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you. Dandavad.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.